Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The Grandview Hotel in Asheville, North Carolina, smelled like money and magnolias that Saturday afternoon. White roses lined the hallways, their sweet scent mixing with the faint hum of hairspray and the buzz of 100 guests milling around downstairs. I stood in front of a full-length mirror in room 312, my wedding dress hugging me just right. Ivory lace, a little vintage vibe, the kind of thing I'd pinned on Pinterest 1,000,000 times. My hands were shaking, though, not from nerves about marrying Ethan Hayes, my boyfriend of 7 years, but from that gut feeling you get when something's about to go sideways. Em, you look like a freaking angel, Lily Parker, my best friend and maid of honor, said as she adjusted my veil. Her brown curls bounced as she stepped back, grinning. Ethan's gonna lose it when he sees you. I forced a smile, smoothing the dress over my hips. Thanks, Lil. Just don't let me trip down the aisle, okay? No promises, she teased, then darted out to check on the bridesmaids. The room went quiet. Just me and the ticking clock. 1 hour to go. I could hear laughter echoing up from the lobby. My cousins, Ethan's frat brothers from UNC, all the people who'd driven up to this mountain town to watch us say, I do. It was perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Then came the knock. Sharp, insistent, like someone who didn't care if they were interrupting. Before I could say come in, the door swung open, and there she was. Sophie Bennett, my stepsister, all 5'4" of her, in a tight black dress that screamed, I'm here to cause trouble. Her blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her green eyes had that glint I'd learned to dread since we were kids. Em, we need to talk, she said, shutting the door behind her. No, congrats. No, you look amazing. Just that clipped tone she'd used since high school, whenever she was about to drop a bomb. I turned, veil swishing. Sophie, I've got like 60 minutes before I'm a married woman. Can it wait? No. She stepped closer, crossing her arms. It's about Ethan. My stomach dropped. Not because I believed her. Sophie had a history of stirring the pot. But because I knew she wouldn't pick this moment unless she had something big. What about him? She took a deep breath, like she was about to deliver a line she'd rehearsed. He called me 2 weeks ago, Em. Said he's been faking it with you. He's in love with me. Asked me to come early so we could run off together before you walked down the aisle. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the dresser, the cool wood grounding me as her words sank in. Ethan? My Ethan? The guy who'd spent last night texting me heart emojis and arguing over whether we'd get a dog or a cat first. No way. But Sophie's face, dead serious, with that little smirk tugging at her lips, made my chest tighten. You're lying, I said, voice low. You've got to be. Why the hell would you drop this now? Because I couldn't let you marry him without knowing, she snapped, stepping closer. He's been texting me behind your back for months. Said he's scared to tell you, scared you'd flip out. I didn't want to come, Em, but he begged me. I stared at her, my heart hammering. The air felt thick, like I couldn't breathe through the perfume and lies. Sophie and I had been tight once, 2 little girls sharing a room after Mom married her dad, Tom, back when I was 9 and she was 8. We'd grown up in Asheville, climbed the same trees, fought over the same Barbie dolls. But high school changed everything. Ethan changed everything. And now, on my wedding day, she was pulling this? Prove it, I said, crossing my arms to mirror her. Show me the texts. Her smirk faltered. I deleted them. Didn't want Ryan finding out. Ryan, her husband. The guy she'd married last year after meeting him at Duke. Suddenly, A light bulb went off. If Sophie wanted to play dirty, I could too. I yanked my phone off the dresser, hands trembling as I opened Instagram. Ryan followed me, mostly pics of his hiking trips and Sophie looking annoyed in the background. I hit the call button, putting it on speaker right in front of her. "Em, what are you doing?" Sophie's voice shot up, panicked. "Getting the truth," I said, glaring at her. The line rang twice before Ryan picked up, his deep voice crackling through. "Emily? Hey, what's up?" "Ryan, it's about Sophie," I said, watching her eyes widen. "She just told me Ethan's in love with her, that he's been texting her, begging her to run off with him today. Said he's scared to marry me. Is that true?" Silence, then a sharp, "What the hell?" from Ryan. "Sophie, is this for real? You told her that?" Sophie lunged for the phone, but I jerked it back. "Ryan, she's standing here saying it's all Ethan. I need to know." "Put her on," he barked. "Now." I held the phone out, and Sophie froze, her face paling. "Ryan, You're unbelievable." He cut her off, voice shaking. "I'm coming up there. We're done with this crap." The call ended with a click. Sophie spun on me, screaming, "Are you insane? You just ruined my marriage. You tried to ruin mine first," I yelled back, my voice bouncing off the walls. "What's your deal, Soph? You've hated me since Ethan picked me over you in high school, and now you pull this on my wedding day?" Before she could answer, the door flew open again. Clara Hayes, Ethan's mom, stormed in, 5 feet of southern steel in a navy pantsuit, her silver hair pulled tight. She'd always had this sixth sense about people, and right now, her blue eyes were locked on Sophie like a hawk. "Emily, I just overheard this one." She jabbed a finger at Sophie. "On the phone with that Mia girl downstairs. Something about making sure it works. What's going on?" My jaw dropped. Mia Torres, Sophie's college bestie, was here. The same Mia who'd always had a thing for Ethan, too. This wasn't just Sophie being a jerk. This was a setup. But Clara's words hit me harder than I expected. If Sophie had planned this, had Ethan been in on it? Was he really texting her? My head spun, the veil suddenly feeling like a noose. "Clara, I swallowed hard, tears pricking my eyes. "Sophie says Ethan wants her, not me." Clara's face softened, but her grip on my arm was firm. "Honey, that boy's been crazy about you since he was 16. Don't let her mess with your head." Sophie scoffed, crossing her arms. "Believe what you want, Em. I'm just trying to save you." "Save me?" I laughed, bitter and loud. "You're a liar, and I'm done." I turned to the door, spotting Lily in the hall with my bridesmaids. "Lil, get her out of here. She's not welcome at the ceremony." Lily didn't hesitate, marching in like a bouncer. "You heard her, Sophie. Let's go." Sophie glared at me, then stormed out, heels clicking furiously. I sank onto the bed, the dress crinkling under me. Clara sat beside me, her hand on my back, but my mind was racing. Ethan, my sweet, goofy Ethan, wouldn't do this, right? But Sophie had sounded so sure, and now Clara's bombshell about Mia had me second-guessing everything. I had an hour to figure this out. An hour before I walked down that aisle, or didn't. Hey guys, what would you do if your stepsister pulled this on your wedding day? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. I'll spill more drama in the next part. The ceremony went off without a hitch, or at least it looked that way from the outside. I walked down the aisle in that Grandview Hotel ballroom, white roses everywhere, with Ethan waiting at the end in his black tux, grinning like a kid on Christmas. The guests clapped, my mom Diane dabbed her eyes, and Ethan's frat buddies whooped from the back. I said, "I do." He said it back, and we kissed under a chandelier that probably cost more than my car. Picture perfect, right? Except my head was a mess. Sophie's words kept looping in my brain. "He's in love with me." Clara's warning about Mia plotting with her didn't help either. I'd told Lily to kick Sophie out, and she had. Last I saw, Sophie was storming toward the lobby with Ryan chasing after her, yelling something I couldn't hear over the string quartet. But even with her gone, I couldn't shake the doubt. Ethan's hand felt warm in mine as we cut the cake, but every time he smiled, I wondered, is he hiding something? The reception dragged on, speeches, toasts, the usual. I faked a laugh when Ethan's best man roasted him about his terrible dance moves, but my heart wasn't in it. By 10 p.m., I couldn't take the noise anymore. I grabbed Ethan's arm, tugging him toward the balcony overlooking Asheville's twinkling lights. The air was crisp, mountain cool, and the moon hung low, casting shadows over the rolling hills. My veil was off now, stuffed in a bag somewhere, and my hair was starting to frizz. Real romantic, huh? "Em, you okay?" Ethan asked, leaning against the railing. His hazel eyes searched mine, and for a second, I almost forgot the chaos. Almost. I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Sophie said you've been texting her, that you wanted to run off with her today, that you don't love me anymore." His face went slack, like I'd slapped him. "What? Em, that's insane. You know I'd never—" She sounded so sure. I cut in, voice shaking, and Clara heard her on the phone with Mia, planning something. "Ethan, I need the truth, right now." He ran a hand through his dark hair, messing up the gel, and looked out at the city. For a long moment, he didn't say anything, just stared at the lights like they'd give him an answer. My stomach twisted. Silence from Ethan was never good. He was the guy who'd ramble about football stats for an hour if you let him. Finally, he turned back, his voice low. "There's something I didn't tell you," he said. "About Sophie." My heart stopped. "What?" "It was back in high school, senior year, before we started dating." He swallowed hard. "She kissed me. Once. At Jake's bonfire party, out by the lake. I was drunk, she was too, and it just happened. I pushed her off, told her I liked you, not her. That was it. I swear." I blinked, the balcony railing cold under my grip. "She kissed you? And you never told me?" "I didn't want to hurt you, Em. You and Sophie were already fighting over me. I could see it tearing you apart. I figured if I just stayed quiet, it'd go away." He stepped closer, reaching for my hand, but I pulled back. "2 weeks ago, she called me. Said if I didn't meet her, she'd tell you about the kiss, make it sound worse than it was. I met her at that coffee shop on Patton Avenue, told her to back off. She wouldn't listen." My head spun. A kiss. 7 years ago, before we were even a thing. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did, because he'd kept it from me, because Sophie had held it over his head like a loaded gun. "So you saw her?" "Behind my back." "To shut her up, yeah," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't tell you, 'cause I didn't want her ruining this. Us. Em, it was one dumb kiss. I was 17 and confused. I've been yours ever since." "Then why didn't you trust me with it?" I snapped, tears burning my eyes. "Why let her hold this over us?" He didn't answer, just looked at me with those puppy dog eyes that usually melted me. Not tonight. Before I could say more, the balcony door swung open, and Lily poked her head out, her face grim. "Em, you need to come inside. It's a shit show." I wiped my eyes, following her back into the ballroom. The vibe had shifted. Guests were whispering, heads turning. Lily pulled me aside near the bar, her voice low. "Mia's been running her mouth, saying you cheated on Ethan in college with some guy from your psych class. People are buying it. Clara's pissed." "What?" I hissed, scanning the room. Sure enough, Clara was by the dessert table, her arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd just kicked her dog. Ethan's aunt was next to her, muttering something, and a couple of his cousins were sneaking looks my way. My chest tightened. Mia, Sophie's shadow, the girl who'd always had a crush on Ethan, was twisting the knife Sophie had left behind. Before I could march over and set Clara straight, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Sophie burst in, mascara streaking her face with Ryan right behind her, red-faced and shouting. "You're obsessed, Soph," Ryan yelled, loud enough to stop the band mid-song. "I heard it all from Emily. You're still hung up on this guy." He jabbed a finger toward Ethan, who'd just walked up beside me. Sophie spun on him, her voice shrill. "You don't get it, Ryan. He was mine first." "Yours," Ethan barked, stepping forward. "I never wanted you, Sophie. Get that through your head." The room went dead quiet, every eye on us. Ryan threw his hands up. "That's it. I'm done. You want to chase some high school fantasy? Go for it. We're over." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a glass fell off a table and shattered. Sophie turned to me, her face a mix of rage and tears. "This is your fault, Em. You called him. You ruined everything. You ruined enough," I shouted, my voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You've been trying to take him from me since we were kids. Just leave." She didn't move, just stood there shaking, until Lily and a couple groomsmen stepped in, ushering her out. The guests started murmuring again, and Clara marched over, her heels clicking like gunfire. "Emily, is it true?" she demanded. "Did you step out on my boy?" "No," I said, louder than I meant to. "It's a lie. Mia's stirring crap up because Sophie told her to. I'd never hurt Ethan." Clara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't push it. "That girl's trouble," she muttered, glancing toward the door Sophie had left through. "Always has been." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. Ethan grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the exit. "Let's get out of here, Em. We don't need this." We slipped out to the parking lot, the night air hitting my face like a slap. Ethan unlocked his truck, an old Ford he'd had since college, and we climbed in, the leather seats creaking under us. The silence was heavy, thicker than the fog rolling in over the mountains. "Em," he started, gripping the wheel. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the kiss." "I should have." "Yeah, you should have," I said, staring out the window. Then I turned to him, my voice steady. "Give me your phone." "What?" "Your phone, Ethan. If you've got nothing to hide, let me see it. Texts, calls, all of it." He hesitated just for a second, and that tiny pause lit a fire in my gut. Was Sophie right? Had I just married the wrong guy? He dug the phone from his pocket, handing it over, his eyes locked on mine. "Check it," he said. "You'll see." I took it, my thumb hovering over the screen. One swipe and I'd know. Drama's heating up, right? Subscribe now and let me know in the comments. Would you check your fiancé's phone after this mess? The Myrtle Beach sunrise was postcard perfect. Golden light spilling over the ocean, waves crashing soft and steady against the shore. Ethan and I were sprawled on a balcony at this cute little condo we'd rented, a week into our honeymoon. I had a coffee mug in hand, steam curling up in the salty air, and he was still in his boxers, flipping through a fishing magazine like we were any normal newlyweds. Except we weren't. Not after that wedding day circus with Sophie. I'd shoved it all down for days. Her lies, Ethan's secret kiss, the screaming match with Ryan. But it was festering, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. "Em, you gonna eat that muffin?" Ethan asked, nodding at the blueberry thing I'd barely touched on the table between us. "Nah, go for it," I said, forcing a smile. He grabbed it, tearing off a chunk, and I watched him chew, his jaw working like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. That phone I'd demanded in the truck after the reception? I'd checked it. Hours after we'd ditched the party, parked under a streetlight in Asheville, I'd scrolled through his texts. Nothing from Sophie in months. Just some random happy birthday from her last year that he hadn't even replied to. Relief hit me hard then, but it didn't last. If he was clean, why'd he hide that stupid kiss? And why'd Sophie think she could pull this off? "Ethan," I said, setting my mug down. He looked up, mid-bite, crumbs on his lip. "I need to see more. Old texts, from high school, college, whatever. I can't stop thinking about her." He froze, then sighed, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Em, I told you everything. There's nothing else." "Then let me see," I pressed, leaning forward. "If it's nothing, it won't matter, right?" He rubbed his face, muttering something about trust, but fished his phone from the pocket of his shorts on the chair. "Fine. Knock yourself out." He unlocked it, tossed it to me, and went back to his magazine, but I caught the twitch in his jaw. I dove in, swiping back years, boring group chats, memes from his buddies, flirty stuff with me from sophomore year at UNC. Then I hit 2018, senior year of high school. There it was, a thread with Sophie. My pulse kicked up as I scrolled. It wasn't flirty, not really. A couple, "Hey, you up?" messages from her, some short replies from him like, "Yeah, studying." Then, after that bonfire he'd mentioned, a string of texts from her. "Sophie, 2:13 a.m. Why'd you push me away? I know you felt it." "Ethan, 2:15 a.m. Soph, I don't. I like Emily. I'm sorry." "Sophie, 2:17 a.m. You're gonna regret picking her. She's not worth it." He hadn't answered that one, but she kept going. Random messages over months, years even, whining about how he should have seen her first. How I didn't deserve him. Ethan's replies were sparse, mostly, "Leave it alone," or nothing at all. The last one was from 2 years ago. "I'm with Em. Stop this." She'd sent back a middle finger emoji, and that was it. I dropped the phone on the table, tears spilling before I could stop them. Not because he'd cheated, he hadn't, but because Sophie's obsession was real, and he'd let it sit there, festering, instead of telling me. Ethan looked up, eyes wide. "Em, what's wrong?" He dropped the magazine, sliding his chair closer. "She's been after you this whole time," I choked out, wiping my face. "And you just let her?" "I didn't let her," he said, grabbing my hands. "I ignored her, Em. I thought she'd give up. I didn't want to drag you into her crazy." I pulled away, standing up so fast the chair scraped the balcony floor. "But you did. She showed up at our wedding with that insane story because you didn't shut her down hard enough." My voice cracked, loud enough that a seagull flapping by squawked back. "I thought I'd lost you to her all over again." He stood too, stepping close, his hands hovering like he wasn't sure if he could touch me. "You're my home, Em. She's nothing. I should have told you. I screwed up. But I swear, it's always been you." I stared at him, the ocean roaring behind us, and something broke loose. I threw my arms around him, sobbing into his chest. He hugged me tight, murmuring apologies into my hair, and for a minute it felt okay. We'd figure it out. We had to. Then my phone buzzed on the table, twice, 3 times. I pulled back, sniffing, and grabbed it. A call from Mom. I almost ignored it, but Ethan nodded, like he knew I needed to deal with whatever was next. I hit accept, bracing myself. "Emily?" Mom's voice was sharp, pissed. "What the hell did you do to Sophie?" I blinked, the warm fuzzies from Ethan's hug evaporating. "What are you talking about?" "She's a wreck," Mom snapped. "Ryan left her. She's crashing at our place, and Tom's losing it. They're saying you called Ryan and blew up her marriage. How could you do that to your sister?" "My sister?" I laughed, bitter and loud. She tried to ruin my wedding, Mom. Told me Ethan wanted to run off with her. Total bullshit. I called Ryan to prove she was lying, and he flipped out because she's still obsessed with Ethan. Silence. Then Tom's voice cut in. He'd grabbed the phone. Emily, she's messed up, okay? She's been a mess since her mom died. You didn't need to drag Ryan into it. Oh, so it's my fault she's a liar? I shouted, pacing the balcony. Ethan reached for me, but I waved him off. She's been after Ethan since high school, Tom. She kissed him back then, did you know that? And she's been texting him crap for years. She's family, Tom said, low and hard. You should have kept it between you two. She stopped being family when she tried to steal my husband on my wedding day, I yelled. If you're picking her over me after this, we're done. I hung up, slamming the phone down so hard it skidded across the table. Ethan pulled me into his arms again, and I let him this time, my whole body shaking. They're blaming me, I mumbled into his shirt. My own parents. They'll come around, he said, stroking my hair. They're just freaked out about Sophie. I wanted to believe him, but the sting was too fresh. Mom, Diane, knew what betrayal felt like. Her ex, my bio dad, had cheated on her when she was pregnant with me, ditched us for her best friend. She, of all people, should have gotten why I'd snapped at Sophie. But no, she'd picked Tom's daughter over her own. My phone buzzed again, a text this time, from Mom. I stared at the screen, the words blurred through tears. We need to talk. Please. I locked it, tossing it onto the chair. Not now, I said, more to myself than Ethan. I'm not opening that till we're home. I just want to be here with you. He nodded, kissing my forehead. Whatever you need, Em. We sank back into the chairs, the waves crashing below, but my mind wouldn't settle. Sophie was with them, probably spinning more lies, turning my own family against me. By the time we got back to Asheville, would they hate me for good? Or would they finally see her for what she was? Family drama's hitting hard. Would you cut off your parents over this? Smash that subscribe and comment below for the final twist. The flight back from Myrtle Beach to Asheville felt like it took forever, even though it was barely an hour. Ethan and I sat squished in coach, his hand on my knee, my head against the window watching clouds roll by. I'd spent the last days of our honeymoon trying to soak in the sun and forget the mess waiting at home. Sophie, my parents, that damn text from Mom I still hadn't opened. But now, stepping off the plane into the tiny Asheville airport, the weight hit me again. My phone felt like a brick in my purse, and I knew I couldn't dodge it anymore. We grabbed our bags, mine stuffed with sandy flip-flops and a tacky, just-married t-shirt Ethan had insisted on buying, and headed to the truck. The air was cooler here, crisp with that mountain bite, and the leaves were starting to turn, all reds and golds against the Blue Ridge skyline. It should have felt like a fresh start. Instead, it felt like walking into a storm. Back at our little rental house on the edge of town, I dumped my suitcase by the door and flopped onto the couch, the worn cushions sinking under me. Ethan dropped his keys on the counter, grabbed 2 beers from the fridge and joined me, popping the caps with that satisfying hiss. He handed me one, his eyes soft. You gonna check it? He asked, nodding at my purse. I sighed, fishing out my phone. Yeah, might as well rip the Band-Aid off. The screen lit up, and there it was. Mom's text from 5 days ago, short and loaded. We need to talk. Please. I stared at it, my thumb hovering, then tapped it open. Another message had come in yesterday. Emily, we're sorry. Come over this weekend? Dinner's on us. My chest tightened, relief mixed with dread. Sorry for what? For picking Sophie over me? For not seeing her crazy sooner? Guess they want to make nice, I said, showing Ethan the screen. He took a swig of his beer, leaning back. You going? Yeah, I said after a beat. But only if you're with me. I'm not facing them alone. Always, he said, squeezing my hand. We're a team, Em. Saturday rolled around fast. We pulled up to Mom and Tom's place, a cozy split level on the west side of Asheville, all brick and overgrown azaleas. The smell of Mom's pot roast hit me as we walked in, warm and familiar, but the vibe was off. Tom was in his recliner, staring at a muted football game, and Mom bustled out of the kitchen, apron on, her graying hair pulled back. She hugged me tight, longer than usual, and I felt her tremble. "Emily, honey," she said, pulling back to look at me. "We messed up." Tom grunted, not looking up. "Speak for yourself, Diane." She shot him a glare, then led us to the dining room. The table was set, roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, the works. Ethan sat next to me, his knee brushing mine under the table, and I braced myself as Mom started talking. "Sophie stayed with us after the wedding," she said, dishing out food. "She was a mess, crying, saying you ruined her life, that Ryan left because of you. We believed her at first. She's family, you know? And with the divorce, she played you." I cut in, my fork clinking against the plate. "She told me Ethan wanted to run off with her mom. On my wedding day. She's been obsessed with him since high school." Mom's face fell, and Tom finally looked up, his jaw tight. "We didn't know the whole story," he said. "Not till Ryan called." "Ryan?" Ethan asked, leaning forward. "Yeah," Mom said, her voice shaky. "He sent us screenshots, texts between Sophie and that Mia girl. They'd been planning to mess with your wedding for weeks. Mia was supposed to spread rumors, and Sophie was gonna, well, you know. Ryan found out after he left her at the hotel. Said he couldn't stay with someone still hung up on another guy." I sat back, the beer bottle cold in my hand. "So you kicked her out?" "Had to," Tom said, gruff. "She wouldn't stop bad-mouthing you, Em. Kept saying you stole Ethan, that we favored you 'cause Diane's got money. It was too much. We told her to pack her stuff and go." "Where is she now?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "Some friend's place downtown," Mom said. "She wouldn't tell us who." The room went still, just the hum of the fridge in the background. I should have felt vindicated, Sophie exposed, my parents on my side, but it hurt instead. She'd been my sister once, my partner in crime growing up. Now she was a stranger crashing with some rando, all because she couldn't let Ethan go. "I'm sorry, Em," Mom said, reaching for my hand across the table. "I should have seen it. After what your dad did to me, I should have known what betrayal looks like. I got caught up in Tom's worry for her, and I failed you." Tears stung my eyes, and I squeezed her hand back. "It's okay, Mom. Just don't do it again." Tom cleared his throat, awkward. "Me too, kid. I was hard on you. Shouldn't have been." Ethan nudged me, a small smile tugging at his lips, and I nodded. "We're good," I said, "but I need to see her. One last time." They didn't argue. After dinner, Mom gave me Sophie's last known spot, a dive bar downtown where she'd been crashing with Mia. Ethan drove us there, the truck rumbling through Asheville's narrow streets, neon signs flickering past. Inside, the place smelled like stale beer and regret. Sophie was at the bar, nursing a drink, her blonde hair a mess. She looked up as I walked in, her green eyes narrowing. "What do you want, Em?" she slurred, setting the glass down hard. "To end this," I said, standing a few feet away. Ethan hung back by the door, watching. "You lied, Soph. You tried to wreck my life. Why?" She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Because you always win. Perfect, Emily. Mom's money, Ethan, everything. I was supposed to have him, not you." He was never yours, I said, voice steady. I'm done fighting over this. I forgive you, not 'cause you deserve it, but 'cause I'm tired. Move on, Soph. Her face twisted, and she stood, wobbling. You'll regret this one day, she spat, then grabbed her bag and shoved past me out into the night. The door slammed, wind whistling through the crack, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Ethan wrapped an arm around me as we left, the cold biting at my cheeks. Back home, we stood on our porch, the city lights twinkling below. I felt lighter, like I'd shed something heavy. Family wasn't blood. It was trust, love, the people who showed up. Ethan was that for me. Mom and Tom were too now. A week later, a letter came. Sophie's handwriting on the envelope. No return address. I held it, the paper crinkling, then slid it into a drawer unopened. Whatever she had to say, I didn't need it. Ethan took my hand, pulling me outside to watch the sunset over the mountains, and I knew we'd be okay. And that's the end, folks. What a ride, huh? Subscribe if you love this roller coaster, and tell me in the comments, would you open that last letter from Sophie? See you in the next story. See you in...